data management, if you think about rows and columns, really complicated data visualization, let's call it a table.
Yeah.
Analytics are the columns. Really easy to add columns, really hard to align rows, isn't it? You took two spreadsheets together, try and bang them together. You can add columns all day long, but do I have the right rows? And it's that simple for me in terms of explaining it. And you got to get your rows right.
Welcome to What Gets Measured, a NinjaCat podcast about marketing, performance management, metrics, and effectiveness. Because what gets measured gets managed. I'm your host, Jake Sanders. For nearly 3 decades, Scott Taylor has been working with marketing and advertising data, partnering with enterprises and innovative data brands that want to change the nature of data management. As the data whisperer and principal consultant at Meta Consulting, Scott helps business executives understand the strategic value of proper data management, and sometimes he uses puppets. He's a gem to follow on LinkedIn, and he's here today to talk about telling data stories better. Scott, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jacob. Great to be here.
Yeah, man. I'm so glad you're here. Finding you has been this breath of fresh air, because I was saying, here's somebody that's pretty wacky, talking about some serious stuff. And your Data Puppet show was amazing. But then I also just wanted to start this question with this simple question. Data Whisperer, where did that nickname come from?
First of all, it's reciprocal. Okay. I loved your show. I found you through the musical, just creative minds, creative as in generating ideas, creative. I know we talked about a different kind of creative before. Right. Are important in the space for sure. So having some fun with it and making a point. But the Data Whisperer, I help calm data down. That's kind of the feeling I want people to get in data management. We've all got to calm data down. It's kind of like the horse whisperish thing. But where it came from, I just stumbled on it one day as an idea. I put it on a badge at a convention. And I got so much positive reinforcement from it, I never looked back. It's like, yeah, the Data Whisperer. And then every once in a while, somebody comes out and says, oh, there's another Data Whisperer. I go, yeah, but I'm the Data Whisperer. So I'll use the part. But we're all data whisperers in the data management space. We all got to wrangle and wrestle and harness and tame all that crazy data out there for our businesses.
Yeah. And I think there's something probably about your presence where a lot of people are scared when they approach the data. It's wild. It's feral, and you kind of have this, I don't know what it is, but there's a little bit of station, when you present yourself next to these things. And I love that humor and irreverence, as we were talking about, not lack of reverence, but irreverence for the way in which we're talking about data, the way in which we're getting at these insights, the advice, the stuff that's going to compel people to do serious work. It doesn't have to be serious. And but you said earlier on, I was watching Scott in a live webinar on LinkedIn. This is the world we're living in today, folks.
Yes.
I got to see Scott talk before he talked on this podcast. But you said you had a background in sales and marketing, and I'm wondering if that helps you in the role of storytelling in data management. I mean,
every day.
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about that salesmanship of data storytelling. I mean, it isn't just that I show you the data and the ones and the zeros and you like it. You have to tell a story. You have to market a little bit. You have to think salesy. How has that play into your thing? And you're saying every day, rap on it.
Every day for me. And also a little bit of background in dramatic arts. I'm sure you had some as well.
Yes.
In college, did drama and on stage and that sort of thing. And all those techniques in terms of being able to communicate clearly to an audience, understand their needs, hear their desires and dreams, but also react to how they're reacting in the moment. All those things come into play every day. But when I talk about data storytelling, just to back up a little bit, the classic kind of data storytelling is what I would consider analytics storytelling, how to put data in a business context to drive value, super important. There's like 20 books out there on that. But my background being in data management, I felt there was another kind of data storytelling that needed to be done, which was about why managing data at the foundational level is so strategically important for every organization, and putting that narrative together in a business accessible way So your C-level executives, your business stakeholders, everybody in the field that you want to have be part of your data activity, however you define that, is engaged, is committed, understands why. The way I like to put it is you got to do the why before the how. And most data people love, and I'm sure you've seen this, you certainly picked on this in your musical a little bit, love to explain how they're going to get it done. Oh, we bought this, and we had this analytics graph hub fabric mesh, and we're going to go on premise, off premise, this, and all this technical stuff that other technical people just slather over, but business people are just, this is why we don't bring this guy in here, because all he does is talk all day about the technical side.
Right.
So focusing on the why.
Yeah.
And focusing on why data management is important. Again, two kinds of data storytelling: one with data and one about data. So I'm the about data guy, why it's important. Where data starts is as important as where data ends up if you're in the data management space.
Oh my gosh. Well, and it's an amazing barrier. And I know that we were talking about there's certain technical people that just don't know how to talk to the normal people out there.
Yeah.
And you're just like, what do they do when they go to Panera? You just hand them a pivot table of ones and zeros and you're like, yeah, okay. He wants a turkey sandwich. Wrong. These people know how to use words, but I think you're right. You get over your skis and technical stuff. I mean, marketers, boy, howdy, do we love acronyms, and then business leaders want to shorten everything up and then create these sort of like, SEAL Team 6 kind of, and you're like, it comes down to understanding what needs to get interpreted, how to do it. But I love that you're getting to that why before the how, because we live in a very technical world. It's all how. But then the why is like, well, the why will just show up. And Simon Sinek, we can talk smack about him, but he says start with why. But he ends up doing it like a purpose thing. Like you want to save the river otters in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and you're like,
yes.
All right, is that
male darker is whatever? But just simple thing. Why managing data? Why data? If you want to broaden the context, even. Why data helps enable the strategic initiatives in your enterprise? What are those intentions that your company has, and why does data help you get there? And that answer exists at every enterprise today, because every enterprise is working with data one way or another. But articulating that in a simple, repeatable, understandable, memorable, all those things that are marketing. And you mentioned it. It's how do you internally market what you are doing with data to the audience, which is the rest of your enterprise. And if you tease apart the term data storytelling, like in order, data, okay, most people in the data space understand that. Story, they're trying to put some form of narrative. But I also focus a lot on the telling part, the actual techniques of getting that message across, whether it's, you mentioned I do puppets. I used to do white papers, but now I prefer puppets. They're a little more engaging, but still the same message.
Right. And
those techniques.
Yeah, and it's articulation, interpretation, discernment, these things that are above little higher order level things. And so is that your approach to transforming the complex data sets into compelling and understandable stories? I mean, that's it. The why, articulation, needs. I mean, if you're just
simplifying the terminology. So I actually focus more on the less complex data stuff, the foundational stuff. In my background, coming from master data, reference data, metadata, you had a great show recently on data integration.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm kind of like even below. I was listening to it going, I live even below that.
Yeah.
Like the basic fundamental piece parts of an organization's data are customers, prospects, products, locations, brands. These are the fundamentals of an organization. And you've got to get that right. You've got to get that really well structured. It's got to be tightly governed. It's got to be expertly stewarded. It's got to be clearly defined. It's got to be in a way that everybody understands it. Because when you want to know how many customers you have or what your top categories are, it can't be like, I don't know, it depends. And you've got to have that rigor around that. And that's where standards come in. And then from there, that's really, for me, the beginning of data management. That's where data begins in an organization. Do we have a clearly defined, actually, and so the way I explain it, MDM, master data, reference data, metadata, all these get really complicated. I think about something called the 4 C's, and you kind of want that on all you to structure your data. You need a code, some sort of unique identifier. You need a company, some form of hierarchy. You need a category, like some kind of taxonomy, what kind of thing it is. And you need, just because they all start with C, country or some form of geography. And if you have that, code, company, category, country, a lot of data problems go away.
Oh, wow. It's so bizarre because this taxonomy, this data dictionary, it's something that I was like, wow, if people can really work on that and get it aligned, when they bring on new clients with different data sets or new platforms with different data sets, it'll be easier. But no, it kind of isn't, because like a LinkedIn, Facebook, Adobe Work, whatever, all those things, an app ID isn't a person, isn't a customer, isn't a thing. So like, I think a lot of people are like, I could have all the structure and rigor I want, but when I start bringing in new data sets that are different, I have to adjust. What do you tell these people?
You create your own standard inside. What do these things mean independent of any of these external sources? Do you have, so you've got a customer ID, classic one, but what level of customer? I grew up in CPG and retail world, working at Nielsen for 15 years. So dealt with packaged goods companies and grocery retailers. And I personally think those are two of the most complicated businesses out there, and have been working with data decades before a lot of other categories.
Right.
Data is not the new anything to a packaged goods company. They've been using data forever, Nielsen and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So you need to have those common definitions first. You start with your own master file, your own definition of, what is a customer? Is it a person? Is it a ship to? Is it a build to? Is it a plan to? Is it a sell to? All those different levels. That's where you get kind of the hierarchy stuff, but just having some semblance of a standard that you can then, if you're working with external data suppliers, I always think it's important to have them help you map their stuff to your stuff, not the other way around. And understanding what level. Brand is great. I consulted WPP, if you know them, right? The world's largest ad agency, attached to, at the time, one of the largest data groups out there, Kantar. Mm-hmm. And my exercise there was actually trying to help them understand the need for internal standards, because everything they did had to do with a brand. Every piece of work in that entire organization had to do with something, the concept of a brand, yet they did not have a common definition of brand of any sort, or hierarchy, or product, or SKU. And so when big clients of theirs said, give me everything you're doing for me across all these geographies, across all these disciplines, they had a real hard time pulling that together. I'm not picking on WPP. I just saw more of it there than anywhere else, but every enterprise has that. So, and you talked about a lot of kind of marketing sources of data, but there's financial sources, there's operational sources, there's divisional stuff, there's all kinds of internal things, there's sales sources, there's external standard bodies. The UPC is a code for products that's used operationally and also as part of analytics, but that isn't necessarily the internal code for that product operationally at a company. So you got to map all that crap together, and that work still has to get done. How do we get these definitions aligned at the right levels so we can, I like to say it is, data management, if you think about rows and columns, really complicated data visualization, let's call it a table.
Yeah.
Analytics are the columns. Really easy to add columns, really hard to align rows, isn't it? You took two spreadsheets together, try and bang them together. You can add columns all day long, but do I have the right rows? And it's that simple for me in terms of explaining it. And you got to get your rows right.
It's so funny because it's a very highly technical, very complicated problem. But there are simple things that you can do and simple questions that you can ask yourself, which might even be existentially damaging. But you have to ask yourself, do you have the foundational hierarchy, that master data management? Do you have that? Because whatever you're trying to do up here is all like hummingbird stuff. We're at the cellular level here, friends.
Yeah, it is.
It's complex organisms, like that's cool. You want to make, you don't have the right cells. You don't even know what's going on in your DNA, RNA, all that kind of, like, if I'm going off on a biological metaphor, but
no, I've referred to in some cases the DNA of marketing. It's that it is. So it's fun that you found that as well. Just really that foundational structural, that's why and people wonder, well, why do you need it? Why do we need all this foundational stuff? It's like, listen to yourself. Why do you think they're calling it a foundation? All right. You know what a foundation? Well, it's just the plumbing. Why do you think they call it plumbing? It's like, they don't call it a bell and a whistle. They don't call it frilly stuff. It's like, it's that basis and infrastructure, these kinds of things that are just, they are macro trend agnostic, as I like to say it, no matter what kind of hot things going on in data these days, right? Gen AI is the white hot, used to be the data mesh, data fabric 2 years ago, big data, dataware, whatever you want to call it. You still need data management. You still need the structural stuff. You still need standards. That does not go away. And I've heard people say, well, can AI process just replace data management? It's like, no, maybe by name, but it's still, there's a data management activity that goes on there. These two pieces of data don't just come together because they like each other. If they're not structured the right way, they will not connect.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's similar in the music world. It's just like, did this debut album of these amazing people come out of nowhere? No, it came from 20 years of them sucking, playing bar gigs, getting pretzels thrown at them. And then, like, did Michael Jordan just show up? Did Tiger Woods just show up? No, these people did not just show up. The foundations need to be there. But so you're talking about common challenges with data storytelling. Is that foundational thing one of the more common challenges? And how do you overcome those things? I mean, you kind of hit on how you do it, but what are common challenges? And then how do you recommend folks get over them?
And yeah, I focus a lot on the foundation because, again, that's where I come from in the data space. I like to call it truth before meaning. Mm-hmm. So you boil my entire data philosophy down to 3 words. That's it. I couldn't get it any shorter than that. It used to be longer, but it's like, what's the fewest number of words I can use here? Truth before meaning. You have to determine the truth in your data foundationally, master data, reference data, metadata, all that uncool, unsexy stuff before you derive meaning out of it through analytics, BI, AI, ML, because all the stuff that people think is data is only data. So business people see that stuff is easier to see. So it's easier to, I think, easier to explain, easier to justify.
Right.
So I wrote a whole book telling your data storytelling for data management. Right on the cover, it says 99% buzzword free. So I didn't want to overpromise. But, my publisher was wondering about that at first, and now he goes, "I love that. I love that." So, all right, good.
Nice. Get it down. But I love that your whole idea is get it down, reduce the things, get brief, get tight.
When I first started just doing more outreaching content with my own voice versus kind of representing some, Dun & Bradstreet. I worked at D&B, I worked at Nielsen, and was usually kind of a market presence for them, a market personality, if you will, doing presentations and conferences and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So I started going on my own, and I began to get input from all different kinds of folks. And the number one criticism I got was, it's a lot more complicated than that. I'm like, well, that's the problem. That's your problem. I'm trying to simplify it. So if I'm not trying to be simplistic, but trying to simplify it. I'm not dumbing it down, but you got to bring it down to its essence and helping people realize if you're an enterprise, there are common challenges that enterprises have because they are enterprises. It's like the nature of the beast.
My man. I mean, and here it is. It's not just the data storytelling. It's your story. So tell it well, or whatever the fuck, but it's very interesting because I wanted to get into this because you said something really cool about like, oh, I like your data puppets, but it's more complicated. It's more technical. It's more serious. And you're like, So what you're talking about is tailoring data stories to different audiences. And something that I love about you is that I know you have a very high sense of the room. What do they want? What do they think will be funny? What are the problems that they have? What are some of the reactions I'm getting live right now? Like, this person isn't staring at me, and maybe they aren't, and maybe that's okay. This person's laughing. I mean, you have to kind of tailor data stories to specific audiences, and you do that. Right. And you've done it with puppets. The data puppets thing, there is a link. There will be a link in this, the show notes. You have to go check this out because it is highly technical, highly sophisticated, but hilarious and with puppets. And you don't need more, I mean,
I appreciate that.
so talk to me about the puppets. Like what was the thing that you were like, what got you thinking? Did you just have a puppet once and you were like, hold on?
No. I was working at Dun & Bradstreet. Okay. And I was trying to communicate. I was actually brought in to help them tell a better story about their single biggest product that they didn't even put on the website. It was like, which was basically their ability to help people with master data, that foundational stuff. They have a code, a DUNS number, they have a hierarchy, they have taxonomy. They had all the piece parts. And when I first met the CEO, he goes, what do you think what do you think we need? I said, we're great at every part of this business except for how we talk about it. Okay, nobody knows. People know we're in the business. My first couple of weeks there, I met an 8-figure client who told me, I know why I'm buying it, but they don't know why they're selling it to me. I mean, that's you don't ever want to be on the wrong side of that comment. And so my challenge with 5,000 employees, dozens of countries, a whole partner network. I had to scale my presence. And that's where I discovered the use of video.
Right.
And then to shorten the story a little bit, I came up with this character and I realized it was going to be a bee because they had this really strange example that they had a lot of Z's in it. And if you pronounce this weird word they had, it's like, that sounds like a bee. It's like a buzz bee, buzz. So I had this bee and I go, I got to name this bee. And I named him Dean B. D&B. It's like a 175-year-old company. Nobody ever came up with that before. And I was trying to make him alive. And it actually puppets came because I couldn't do cartoons.
Right.
So it's like, I got to animate. Cartoons are really hard. I'm like looking at Adobe. And I bought a puppet. Like, I can do anything I want. I do retakes. I can do ad libs. So I created this puppet character, Dean B, who had these internal videos that were the highest viewed videos in the company, even above like the CEO's Christmas message. Okay. It was like, and everybody loved them except for the marketing people who thought it was like off brand, they did that stuff. I'm sure you've run into that occasionally.
Oh, maybe. So you started with this idea. You have this. It's very cool because you created a character from the feeling of saying a word.
Yeah, exactly. It was very organic that way. So that I went out on my own and like I had all these data jokes and kind of this almost routine. I hit upon this, that for those of you who don't know me yet, the hero of my data puppets is the CDO, the Chief Dog Officer. And again, that sort of naturally came in. It's like, oh yeah, CDO, Chief Dog Officer. It's like, again, sort of like laying there, waiting to be used.
Right.
And I did the first puppet thing, which was just the first one I did, which was a couple of years ago. It was just this bickering back and forth between the CDO and the ITB. So now Dean B turned into an ITB. And this monkey from the business called Business Monkey, who was really stupid. And from a storytelling perspective, it was like every line was either a setup or a punchline. It was like, that was the kind of discipline I was working on. It's like, all right, this has got to be really just like every moment's got to be something. Whether everybody gets it or not doesn't matter, but it's got to be something. And I released this called Too Much Tech Talk. And it was my biggest hit ever. So I get thousands of views on LinkedIn. I get people are sharing it. They're right away asking, oh, I'm presenting at Gartner next week. Can I use your video? I'm like, yeah, sure. Here, let me send you an original. Let me send you a file for that one. So I got this wonderful feedback. And in that case, actually, the biggest common piece of feedback I got was, this is just like my company. Like, I just left this meeting. The same thing we're going on, only it's serious. It's like so funny, but so true. And I went, all right, I'm on to something. So fast forward a couple of years, I've been developing this bigger series. With the one you're referring to is really a preview of a longer multi-episode series called Journey to the Center of the Single Version of the Truth. The greatest data story ever told, because it's yours. And it has the CDO who's presenting to the CEO who's an elephant, and the CMO who's a mouse. And in the initial scene, they all have this complete word salad of their department.
Mm-hmm.
So I captured that kind of, premise that everybody just talks in buzzwords and acronyms and all the rest of it. And because there were animals, I had so much fun. Like the elephant goes, well, I think we need to build a better mousetrap. And the mouse goes, well, I wouldn't put it that way. And the CFO says, well, we're really underwater. I mean, it just was like simple dad joke kind of stuff, but it played when these animals are talking to each other in animal cliches. It was just so much fun. So I'm building that out. And I'm also just trying to stay as creatively as I can in the space. Because 5 years ago, I was one of the only folks out there kind of doing, high energy, inspirational kind of keynote-y stuff in the world of data management, this tiny world of data management. And now there's a bunch of folks out there, some of whom I feel I've actually mentored along there and friends of mine or whatever. But the space is, how do I differentiate my voice, and how do I really focus on, for me, the most gratifying part, which is just purely creating that story and having it come alive, and then having somebody just react to it in a way that it's so joyous and gratifying to see somebody go, yeah, that's me. And it's an elephant.
Yeah, well, I mean, and that's cool. That's real creativity. Real creativity is when people see themselves in the thing, not when it's this new, unimagined world, like new vistas, unexplored countries. No, it's like a cliche that someone's like, I'm totally with that. I am that cliche. And you have to have experience in group knowledge. You're paying attention to funny little quips, funny things someone says, funny analogies, metaphors, like different kind of metaphorical structures that you can inhabit, dad jokes. I mean, this is the material, the medium through which you can communicate. But people are thinking, no, it needs to be highly technical. It needs to be unassailable in the way it's technically obtuse. Like you're like, I get that, but marketing communications has suffered for long because the thing that the C-suite says is good ends up sounding like a robot wrote it. And now everyone's like, AI, it's going to make everybody sound, honey, have you listened to any board meeting? Like, these fools already sound like robots. Right. They're not, like, a robot isn't going to help them or make them more real. What you need is somebody who's been out in the field, just on the side, paying attention, observing. And that's what creative people do. I mean, that's the same thing with me in the musical is I said, well, I'm going to do a musical because I'm, gifted and I can write music. And then my boss was like, do it. And I was like, oh no. Because usually if you're a creative person and you come up with an idea, you are very used to the idea of people just shooting you out of the sky like skeet shoot.
I don't think that'll work.
Yeah,
really.
Well, you're not a marketing department. They say pull, and you shoot an idea out into the sky, and then they fucking blast it to pieces because they're like, off brand, plow, pull, too expensive. Pull, not enough manpower, plow, and you're like, and then all of a sudden you're like, could we get Snoop? And they're like, okay, keep talking. Okay, he's $2 million. We might be able to make it work.
It's
Okay, I'm over here. So anyway, you have to base it on real people. I interviewed clients. I interviewed, the chief technical folks. I was like talking to people who are in product, in engineering. Does this make sense? If I said this, what would that? Here's some lyrics. Is this how people talk? No, they would say this. They would say, like there's a line in one of the songs I wrote. I said, the scale and the load is enough to explode our existing infrastructure to piles of code. And then I sent it out to somebody and they were like, we actually call them stacks. And so I was like, boom, change, make it better, make it better, make it more relatable. And then when people hear it, they'll be like, that's me. So it isn't this, my creative idea is something that you come up to. I come down to you and hopefully that you see yourself in the Swiss cheese moment that I've made possible, because there's holes. And if you want to, you can be a part of this. And if not, you can tell me that, oh, no one likes cheese or no one, you know what? Anyway.
You know what? You don't want to telegraph your, the answer to your last questions there. So about cheese.
Let's get there. Let's get there. We do have a plan here. Scott is nice. He's like, look at the master data.
Show. I know what's coming.
Look at this. So
homework.
Yeah, but let's talk about this. Let's get to this next question. Could you provide an example of a data story that significantly impacted a client's strategy or decision-making process? Like in all of your consulting thing, give me a Cinderella story about a data story that just knocked it out.
I think, and again, my data stories are kind of like creating a narrative about why data is important. So I think a good one is this, and wasn't all based on my work. It's a company that I worked with that was in the logistics business, and they used a lot of my premises to create some excitement and an internal marketing program around, again, their master data program. Okay. Master data management. If you say that too quickly, somebody doesn't know what you're talking about. They're like, master what? What did you say? You got to manage it? What kind, so you're going to talk about technical. And this logistics part of what they did and took some advice that I have in my book, which was, instead of trying whole cloth, creating some metaphor and a bunch of imagery you got to explain, use your business as the metaphor for data and what you need from folks about data. So this company, world-class logistics and shipping company, talked about how data moves from one place to another. And just like our shipping, when we ship something, we have to know where it came from. We have to know where it's going. We have to know the provenance. We have to know what's inside it. We have to know, who owns it. So they just kind of used a lot of that terminology, and kind of, and their slogan, which I can't remember right now either way, but it's a premise that I say too, is like, use the slogan of your company and just put the word data in there somewhere and see if it plays. Does that work? Start from that. Start from what your company does and make that the basic metaphoric framework to tell and explain this, because people like metaphors. They like similes. They like poetry. It helps if it's used well. It shortens the distance to understanding what you're talking about. That's the purpose of it. And, I knew of met a CDO of a water utility who talked again. He used water. It's like, okay, everybody knows about pipes and water needs to be filtered. It has to be high quality. It has to be dependable. When you turn the tap, it has to come out. You have to know what you're getting. Healthcare company talked about, data is the lifeblood of our organization. A healthy company works off of healthy data. I have a bad story where a executive from executive from a tobacco company was talking to me about using data, and he's like, it's like just fresh air, breathing in fresh air. You want to be able to get the high quality. I'm like, guy, don't go there, because it's just not gonna.
Too complicated. Yeah. It's too fraught.
You don't have to do cigarettes, but don't do the fresh air thing. It's not going to play. So it's just using. There's a bunch of examples there. But folks who have used kind of their own, that I think helps. And then so they build collateral around it. They might have swag around it. They might have all kinds of other cute stuff around it. But finding that, as finding the campaign hook. What is this? What is the basis of our messaging? And keeping that consistent, just like all marketing, even though it's internal, you need reach, you need frequency, and so those are the ones that I've seen really reap the benefits of deeper engagement, better funding. They're not explaining every year why they exist. And it takes a while, just like building a brand of any sort, building the brand, your internal data brand, and what it can do for your company and why it brings value. Takes some investment, takes some planning, takes some structure, takes some rigor, takes some creativity. But it pays off, because you're not starting over. And that's what I learned at, I learned it to scale at these organizations where I was taught to help create the story.
Right.
You can't start over every time. It's like, where are we in this? In my book, I know I'm going on a little bit, but I actually have a formal framework in my book called the 3 V's of data storytelling. And it's kind of obviously a little wave to acknowledgement of the 3 V's of big data. But instead of, volume, velocity, and variety, mine are vocabulary, voice, and vision.
Mm-hmm.
And so first, vocabulary, you got to get the words right. We've talked about it the whole time. What are the words of your organization? What do you call a customer? Is it a customer? Is it a client? Is it a patient? Is it a consumer? Have that terminology correct. When I worked at Nielsen, and you go to different companies, they had different names for things that were the same. You're just a human. You go, that's the same thing. But they had different language for it. And learning that was really valuable to get trust and build, collaboration and so on. So you got to get the words right.
Yeah.
Voice. How do you all sound? How does this thing even sound? Is it a consistent story? Have you practiced it? Do you have a theme? Do you have, what's the basis of the voice that you are using out there? Does your whole team get it? No matter who they are? Can you do the 2-minute version for your CEO and the 2-hour version for, sales orientation? And then vision. Why does what you do with data enable the strategic intentions of your enterprise? Where's your data? Where's your company going? And why does data help you get there? And that one actually seemed to be the most challenging for a lot of folks I talk to.
Yeah.
And I say, if you want to, read your annual report. Okay. You want to know the vision of your company? You don't need to have a one-on-one with the CEO. They will talk about things that you can connect data to. And if you build off this sentence, again, sort of boiling things down, every company wants to deliver value to their relationships through their brands at scale. I don't know a company that doesn't want to do that.
Well, this seems very unoriginal.
Right? Yeah. It's like, if you don't want to do that, then what are you doing?
Really.
But if you're an enterprise, want to deliver value, okay, define value, grow the business, improve the business, protect the business. Relationships. What are those relationships? Customers, partners, vendors, prospects, all those, the things the parties you relate to. And then brands. Every company's got a brand. It might be a product. It might be a service. It might be a location. It might be a store. It might be a banner, different kinds of brands. Mm-hmm. But again, I try to make it as extensible as possible and find the words that have meaning in every organization, and then say, okay, what do you mean by that? When you say relationships, what are those? And use that vocabulary right in there. So if you go back to reading your annual report, if you're a public company, they're not going to talk about data quality. They're not going to talk about, they might pop in AI these days, but they're not going to talk about data management. You're never going to see the words metadata, but they are going to talk about relationships, and they are going to talk about brands.
Right.
And the most important data you have in your company is the data you have about your relationships and about your brands. And if that sucks, then you're not going to be able to do the stuff your CEO said they wanted to do. So take apart that statement that says, really generic one, we want to be the premier partner of choice for our customers and vendors, big highfalutin sort of, okay. But your customer data is terrible. Your vendor data is in 30 places. You can't get there unless you've got this stuff. So that's your opening, not we're going to use Gen AI to blah, blah, blah on our analytics graph up fabric match. It's like, what you said about building those relationships? Look at our relationship data. It's like 1 million duplicates. There's no hierarchy. Our biggest category is other.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah, or other.
I got a lot of NA in here. Like,
my favorite's DK, which a real client had. We asked them what that meant. And they said, don't know. It stands for don't know.
Well, at least you got that figured out.
Got that out.
Oh, okay.
So taking what most people have, which is really crappy, dirty, duplicated, unstructured, messy data, and trying to find a reason to walk into the boardroom to say we need to fix this is hard. So I'm saying the way to do that is not to say we have dirty data. It's to say the objectives you set, we don't have the data to back it up, to support it. So that's why we need the help. Because if we have great data, it will do those things you want.
Here's what I'm saying. Here's my problem. Anyone saying they need help means they don't know what they're doing. So somebody saying, yo, I know you want all this top line growth or whatever. I don't have the data and the mechanisms to get to tell those things to you. They would say that's your problem. Do you know what I mean? Like they would put it down, and most people do not want to. I love the fact that, like, you know, you have a puppet and the puppet's saying all these things and it's buzzwords and it's like, oh, it's so disconnected and that's so hopeless. I love these puppets. That's exactly like my company.
Right.
And then you say, well, like most people don't want to say that things are bad. They don't want to say that they need help because that means they're a failure. Can you talk to these people to be like, yo, raise your hand. Say, I know you want this. I want to get you these things. I don't have the technical ability to do it. Can we talk? No. No one would ever say that. Am I wrong?
Well, I wouldn't say you're totally right or wrong here yet, because my experience has been with data management folks. And part of the inspiration for my book was I dealt in general, you know, you always find them. They're in there. They're in the back room. They don't have the glorious job. That was never.
They're not up front, right? They're in the back.
And they're like dealing with, you know, messy zip codes. And again, you know, 35 ways to spell street. And it seems so clerical and back office.
Undignified is what I would say. Yeah.
But they had this duality of emotions that I always ran into, which was incredibly passionate about what data could do for their organization, but also insanely frustrated because nobody listened to them. And that was like, that's my gap. That's my spot. I'm going to fit right in the middle there. Bridge that story gap between like your data reality and your business vision. Because you're not going to get and I walk in as a third party, and that's over the years has helped, I think, support people, because it's like I can walk in as an independent third party and say that business vision is not going to be fulfilled if you continue to have the data problems you have. And these data problems are not how to use Gen AI. These data problems are, we looked up, you know, 7-Eleven, and you have 100 different ways to spell 7-Eleven. And you're not going to get, and you have duplicates that are so bad that you don't know that these two customers are the same person. And this happens, you know, you don't have a hierarchy in place that allows your sales force to cross-sell and upsell consistently, but also they don't realize that this division that they're giving a promotion to actually is related to another division that's bad debt.
Oh, and can I just say real quick, the marketers won't say schnips about this, because if there's a bunch of like instances of, it looks like a bigger portfolio, but what if those are all dupes? What if those are, it actually doesn't matter. It looks kind of good. It looks kind of fat, you know, and you like a marketer is never going to raise their hand on that. Am I wrong in saying that?
I don't know. I think they, you know, if they're dealing with data, you know, if they're dealing with Salesforce or Pareto or, you know, all these other, you know, tools out there that have all these duplicates. I mean, that's a constant plague, you know, that people have to deal with, which are, you know, at the most granular level, just duplicates. I mean, that's why there's a UPC. Okay. That's why there's a universal product code. So here's a unique identifier that represents this particular SKU in this place and every other place. So every type of technology at the front end of a store can understand what that thing is. And if you didn't have that, all sorts of other stuff falls apart.
That's wild. And you mentioning that fast packaged consumer goods, like people in grocery stores, they've been dealing with data like this at this level, at this clip for a long time. So this is new for us digital marketing people who are trying to attribute things across cookies, and who knows if those are going away. And
whatever. And the premise is this. What I try and do is sort of like at this point in my career, it's like recognize where the thing is. It's not even whether it's there or not. It's like, okay, here's a new thing coming out in the data technology space. I'll just read long enough to find out what they're calling, right? So what they're calling, what I know of, you know, in the IoT space. Internet of Things, there's a thing called namespace. I learned about this, and there's like, oh, there's IDs in the namespace. I go, all right, that's just that's where the standards live. That's where the unique identifiers and the hierarchies and the taxonomies and
in the Namiverse or whatever,
in all the these name of whatever it's called. Or it didn't take too long to figure out that LLMs are trained on data, and if that data isn't any good, it's not coming in. And big data is big only because it's unmanaged. It's not structured. Once you put structure on data, it's not so big anymore. You can work with it.
Oh, it's great.
If you think about the amount of the volume, velocity, and variety of data that comes out of a supermarket, but they never called that big data because it was highly structured already, or certainly on a relative basis, some of the most structured data that companies would use. And sitting at Nielsen, sitting in between all these, right? You've got TV over on one side, media on one side. You got, product on the other side. I know I was picking on Kantar a little bit, but believe me, Nielsen had its own issues mapping like what the TV folks call Coca-Cola versus what the scanner folks call Coca-Cola. We're living at the global brand family level, and they're living at the SKU, bottle and can level.
Wow.
But those things roll up. And so once I got into that, that's all the stuff I loved. And it's everywhere, right? It's hierarchies, taxonomies, geographies, identifiers. You don't have that right. You don't have data you can work with.
Well, and it's cool because you have such a wonderful affect. Like there's something about your presence that makes me feel like, man, if I could get him to explain what's going on, I would feel so much better because I could trust this person in a white coat with like one of those like mirrors on their heads and be like, this is a data doctor. You have someone like Scott who's like, I feel like I could like be at an airport bar and you would tell me exactly what I needed to hear without fluffing and guffing and, puffing up anything. But this is, I want to get to this next question because you're amazing. The way you tell, the focus on the telling is the great takeaway from this for me, because you were saying that you don't want to retell the data story, but all new data starts showing up, new platforms, new things. The title of the show is NeverEnding Data Story, but I wanted you to riff on how data storytelling isn't a fixed thing. But
because there's always somebody who doesn't understand. There's always a new way.
People. Yeah, exactly right.
It's a new way to kind of put this same thing, these core principles, if you will, in the next context. So AI came out as the biggest, hugest thing. Again, if you were in the business, it's been around for a while. I know the Gen part was new, and ChatGPT is an awesome interface and all that kind of stuff. But the premises were kind of there already. People were talking about AI and for a long time in the data space, but it's like, how do you explain the need for this structured data in that context? You got to use the terms of that context, so feeding, training data and all that kind of stuff. And so it's just finding how it weaves into whatever people are talking about these days. And there'll always be new data sets. There'll always be new contexts, but I don't know about you, but I kind of look back and say, if you know the Iliad and the Odyssey, you know pretty much most of the stories out there, right?
You got to get to those journey. Got to get to those places where everything branches off. Once you start figuring that out, it's fish out of water, Pygmalion,
Shakespeare. You look at that, I've been finding people talking about like sort of like if you studied. And again, I was dramatic art, so studying Shakespeare in college and knowing the 5-act structure, all right, that's the story. You're not going to change that. You can't change that, right? No. And so know that. And so those are the common things. But you apply that structure to something brand new. Music, right? They didn't come up with any new notes. You know that.
Are there new notes?
Are there new notes? I don't know. Every good boy deserves favor. I don't know if they can.
No, there aren't. In Western music, there are still only 12 notes.
Yeah, so that's it. But so it's knowing those fundamentals,
right?
Whether it's storytelling or the foundation of your data, and then just applying those disciplines to something new. it gives you kind of a head start too, because you're not starting from scratch. It's like, all right, what's the exposition? What's, how are we going to introduce this stuff?
Right.
We're going to build some kind of, where's the hook? Where's the climax? Where's the, the payoff? What's the call to action? What, however you want to phrase it.
But that, I mean, right there, you're saying like data storytelling, people are over here wondering if they got the data, number, pivot table, whatever the hell it is. But y'all ain't thinking about traditional storytelling structure, wherein which you have something that happens. Somebody says, I'm reading a book by George Saunders, and he like takes apart Russian literature and kind of like gives meaning for all of these kind of like very verbose, floral kind of things in the late 1800s. But he said that's what a story does. It gets you with one line, and then it asks you, are you interested to go to the next? And if you're not, it doesn't matter what the hell it is. You have to grab them one line, phrase, thought at a time. And that's why something like puppets is great, because I'm already, my defenses are down. My bullshit meter is down. Because I'm thinking like, well, that can't be. But if you show yourself as an expert and you walk out with a whole bunch of things, and they you don't go out on stage, you have them walk you out like Hannibal Lecter in one of those things, and then they position you, and then they put a microphone in front of you. You're like, this person really knows what they're doing. This person has been institutionalized. They have so much knowledge.
My first keynote when I came out was called "Data Management is the Foundation of Digital Transformation," which is hard to argue.
So elaborate. I had that tattoo.
And now the keynote I have is "Data's the new bullshit." And just kind of like grab people. Yeah. And now, actually, the one for this year is "Data's the new bullshit" Gen AI edition. So I
was going to say "Data's the new bullshit plus."
Yeah. It's like, I don't even have to rework this. And, sometimes people put BS, but they get it right away. And for me, that already telegraphs, okay, what kind of experience this is going to be.
Absolutely.
And I come right out. It's like the first line I say is, all right, there's the new bullshit. Somebody's got to say it. I got to say, we got to go have the hard conversation. I got to tell you this. You got to hear it. But the subhead is, or the subtitle is, why the way we talk about data is holding the industry back and what you can do about it.
God, I can't wait
really
for that.
Focused on this, like the way we talk about it. There's lots of problems in the data space, but I focus on the way we talk about it because it is a problem.
It's gorgeous. I mean, but I just feel like I'm in safe hands when you're talking, because you have a deep mastery. You have deep experience. I mean, like you are coming from decades staring at data in the face, like taming it. Like, I mean, like it's awesome to know that there's somebody who has taken all their experience and still has joy, still wants to transmit meaningful things, still is creative in the way that they're thinking about accessibility points for complicated knowledge. Like you're the teacher that everybody wanted to have. Like you're that amazing like person on stage. How does he do it? Well, he's doing it just for you kids, and he's online and you can find him. But before we go, I need you to just give me your one piece of advice on data stories. Imagine you are at an airport bar, somebody's frustrated. They don't know what to do. You're sitting next to them. What's your one piece of advice for them?
It comes back to learn how to tell a story. Learn how to tell a story.
Well, they wouldn't think that. No one would think that. They have their slide rulers out. They have like complicated. And
the second one after this, and practice it. I mean, get good at it. Mm-hmm. Train those, soft skills are hard. Get better at that. And recognize that that's an important piece of it. If you go back to like, okay, data, you got story you're working on, but telling, get up on stage, talk to people you don't know, look in the mirror. Communication is, the lubricant for everybody's career at some point. Who doesn't want to, if you want to have any kind of aspiration and in whatever part of career you have, being a better communicator is going to help you. Helps with every kind of relationships, right? Helps with relationships personally, helps with relationships professionally. You can't get enough of it. So recognize those skills are important and get better at them every day. And I'm still learning. I'm still, working on techniques and trying to get better and sharper and crisper and all the rest of it. But
right. Well,
the rest will come.
we are so lucky. Big little bit of a plug here for this book, Brief by Joseph McCormick. I read it once, and it says how you make a bigger impact by saying less. And it was like, stop talking. Which I was like,
I love it. One word title on purpose. Love it. Yeah. Can't get shorter than that.
It's beautiful. But I would say, to double up on what Scott is saying here, learn how to talk, learn how to communicate, practice it, and also get it airtight. Zoom out all the unnecessary words and get in. And I love that your advice is, if you have a tagline, break it out in a deep etymological way, like study those words. Do you know the definitions? Get to that point, then you can get, after you have the foundation, you can get as creative as you want. But a lot of people are treating this as a pineapple upside down cake. You're putting the icing on the bottom. Kids, you're wrong. So anyway, I wanted to, that metaphor was in my head. I was like, I have to dish it out before we go. But anyway, if you want more of this stuff, and you do, Scott is an amazing presence online. Seriously, it's a revivifying. I feel alive when I hear him talk. Follow him online. But if people want to connect and learn more about you, Scott, how can they do that?
I'm on LinkedIn, all over the place. Find me on LinkedIn, Scott Taylor, Data Whisperer. I'm on YouTube. I got a YouTube channel with all my videos, including a Data Puppets playlist. Google Data Puppets. Just go. I dare you. Google the term Data Puppets, and you will find nothing comes up. There isn't even a below the fold for that. It's all me. I love it. And that's a totally organic SEO marketer's dream, that somehow Google has never seen the words data and puppets together that haven't related to my stuff. So all my content's on there. And but follow me on LinkedIn. It's a way to kind of get regular activity. And my website's Meta Consulting, or just Google Scott Taylor, the Data Whisperer, and you'll find my website too. Just got everything I do, I put on my website. It's more like a portfolio than it is a website at this point.
Cheese or chocolate?
Are you ready?
Okay, I'm ready.
Cheese or chocolate?
Chocolate. But
I mean, I heard the chief dog officer when you answered.
Yeah, it is chocolate, but I'm fond of saying at home, bread is my chocolate. So I will eat a great piece of bread over chocolate any day. My partner's here. She was in the other room. She goes, bread.
People know you.
Whisperer. She's the data whisperer. She helps calm me down. So that's her.
We all need a whisperer.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, good. Okay, bread, which was not an answer, but okay, let's see. No, just keep going. It's creative. I love it. Movie sequels or sequel tables?
Oh, movie sequels for sure.
Yeah.
Without question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Star Trek or Star Wars?
Star Wars.
Okay, all right. Bagel. Oh, this is a bread related question. Bagels or toast?
Bagels.
Yeah. Every day.
Bagel a day. Almost. Yeah. Probably too much. But yeah. Bagels. Yeah.
The bagel police will be contacting you.
No problem.
Outer space or bottom of the sea?
Bottom of the sea. I think I'll say bottom of the sea.
Yeah, a little closer to Malibu.
A little closer, but not in that, whatever that submarine was.
Yeah, the Titanic 2. Why did they? We should have named it something else. Anyway.
Outer space is just there's so much, like it takes forever to get anywhere. So
yes, exactly right.
You think you're going to see something and you're not, it's a whole different.
Thoughts. Scott has them. All right. Finally, I saved the tasty one for the end. See the future or change the past?
Ooh. I think future. Yeah.
Was that your whisperer whispering to you?
She's like, go.
She cannot. No, that is
all
not.
All money's on the future.
Yeah. See if we make any money.
I got it great. I got one. So.
Okay, great. Why would he change anything?
Perfect. You got it made.
What Gets Measured is a NinjaCat podcast. Please rate and review the show wherever you find your podcasts. share this episode on social, and visit us on the web at ninjacat.io.